You know, one of the greatest myths about communication is that the other person actually understands what we're really trying to say. The reality is that when we're communicating, the other person often is with their interpretation of our behavior or our words, but not with the degree of clarity that we would like them to be. So I think it's so important that we have this conversation about communication.
All right, let's communicate about communication.
Let's communicate about communication. You know, when we're communicating, we want to stay away from mind reading. Yeah, we want to stay away from that. We want to be clear about the difference between what is happening and how you or I felt. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know, we were talking about different ways we could do that.
Oh, yes, we were.
Mm-hmm.
I think you started up with just that, not mind reading. And one way to do that, actually not to avoid mind reading, would be to start your conversations with an I statement.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I feel unheard, or I feel hurt when so and so happens. You know, when you speak to me that way, I felt embarrassed in that space.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, you're owning what you're feeling, what has happened, and then you are avoiding casting blame or judgment the other person. So that is one tip. No mind reading, make an I statement.
No mind reading, make an I statement. And I heard you mention in a little way the second tip, which is to stay away from judgment.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, be clear, be very clear.
Not crass.
Not crass. and stay out of judgment. Any ideas of how we could kind of make sure that we don't stay out of judgment?
Well, actually, one of the ways we can stay out of judgment, Akilah, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is using our boundaries. So let's say, for example, as always happens, usually happens, a trans woman gets attacked on by Victoria Square, goes in to make a report by the police station. The officer, it would seem as if the officer is being transphobic or being reluctant to take the report. In that moment, this is where the containing boundary comes in, and you're seeing a vote of judgment. I'm not going to judge the officer and say the officer hate trans people, he won't take my report. I'm going to contain myself and take a moment and pause and recognize that I am feeling these things inside of me have been activated, and I want to lash out. But you know what? Maybe lashing out is not the best thing right now. Maybe I should just comply and then complain. It's not going to help me right now to get into an interaction with this person. So I'm continuing thoughts I have in my head about what I want to tell the officer about how you're not taking my report. You could also engage your own protective boundaries to protect yourself from what you see as discrimination by recognizing that in this space, my emotions are high, I'm a bit triggered. Maybe I'm not perceiving things the way they should. When I go home after I make my report, I will go home and I'll do some emotional processing away from the conflict situation. So you're avoiding judgment and casting blame and supposing that the man not taking a report because of X, Y, and Z by employing the use of these boundaries that we had spoken about earlier. Does that land with you, settles with you?
Yeah. I think what I like about what you just said, Ray, is that in a way you kind of brought all the pieces together. You're not mind reading, yeah? You're making I statements, you're owning what you're feeling. I feel this particular thing, but you're knowing it's about you. And if you're having a conversation with somebody, you'd use the I statement and even check in to verify, is it what's really happening here? If you don't have the context for that, you just need to know, you know what, I'm going to be clear about what it is I'm experiencing. I'm going to be clear in my report, I'm going to be clear in my communication. Not crass, avoid judgment, yeah? And in order to help me to be able to do that, I want to practice both my protective boundaries, which is to protect myself from stuff that's happening outside of me, as well as my containing boundaries, which means that I have to contain.
It sounds easier, but it does require a lot of self-regulation.
It does.
And be able to have that sense of self-assessment in that moment. So it takes some practice, folks, but we could all get there as members of the queer community, being gender and sexually diverse. We know we run into these situations often, and there's a lot of hurt that is sometimes carried with us, residual hurt from previous experiences. So use these examples we gave you before about containing boundaries, about self-advocacy, about knowing your rights, to empower yourself to hold yourself firm in these situations. Just like you're given a report and you figure the officer doesn't want to assist you. knowing in the back of your mind you have rights. So when we're done, we could call Wholeness and Justice and we get on to the lawyer or something, right? Regulate yourself, contain yourself by not lashing out and making the situation more volatile. And practice. And if you don't know how to practice self-regulation or being able to be self-aware in these moments, well, you can get called Wholeness and Justice, and Akilah here will gladly walk you through or teach you these coping strategies.